We're dedicating this episode today to Kerwin and his family and his children. It's been 30 days since his passing, and it's a shame to see such a legend in Australia supporting young entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general, and business owners, especially small business owners, over the last 2 decades, who unfortunately passed away just over 30 days ago. Shout out to Kerwin and his family. Respect. And our condolences. So look, today we're speaking about seeking the right information, which I think is critical for your business and for yourself personally. It really sets a foundation for your belief system moving forward and can ingrain itself inside you for many, many years, right, and decades. So I think seeking the right information is king. That's what we're talking about today. Thank you for joining.
What does seeking the right information mean to you, and why is it so important?
I think it's important to most people. The issue with that is they don't realize it. And in fact, they realize it way after the fact, and it could be many years later, right? Because seeking the right information is about 2 things. The information that you need now, and the information you need to build belief systems, right? Like there's 2 main categories for me, and belief systems are pretty critical to get right. And I've said this before, we normally inherit our belief systems, we don't get to create them on our own. So we really don't get to make a lot of decisions about how we build those. Because as a young teenager or adolescent is really when you really start to build foundations around belief systems. You normally get that from your parents. You know, your parents will say certain things to you, act a certain way, and depending on the decade in which they grew up in, or the century, they will be influenced by that. So their influence becomes your influence. And unfortunately, that influence becomes your belief systems. So I think there's always a need to review belief systems and upgrade them. And adolescent belief systems that are formatted from your parents are, 1.0. I think I'm probably at 4.0, understanding what my belief systems are and what's important to me. And that changes over the cycle of life. There's 3 key cycles in a human being's life. And I think each of them require an upgrade, right? So upgrade the software and take it to the next version. I would probably think 99% of the people on this planet don't actually do that or understand it. So my take on it is that you should be very conscious about it and think about what your belief systems are telling you as you walk through life. And no one really ever challenges it. I see a good example that I see is parents, right? And I've made this mistake. This is, I'm certainly not perfect, but, where parents parent their children the way that they were parented. And then that carries on through generations. The issue with that is that society changes, right? But the belief systems start to say relatively congruent to what their parents did. And I think that creates a problem, because when you're raising, especially with the inclusion of social media and that influence it's had over the last 2 decades on young people, parents struggle with this. If you're parenting your children the way that you were parented in the 70s, 80s or 90s, where there was no influence of social media, how can there even be any synergy with that? So that said, if I wind that back, seeking the right information will impact that, and it'll impact things in the now. And what I mean by that is your relationship with your children, with your partner, the relationship with your business, making decisions, right? Because the information is attached to decision-making processes that you formulate, by the way. We all make decisions a particular way that's influenced from our belief systems. So I think it's critical that people seek the right information at different stages of their life and at different journeys, right? Even at different stages of your business. If you're a young entrepreneur growing a business, the decisions and the belief systems that you should have from 1 to 3 years will change when you're in year 10, right? Because the business is more mature, you're more mature, and if you haven't changed your belief systems or the way you structure your decision-making process, you would be relatively what I would call stagnant, right? Very hard to grow personally and economically, if that's the case.
But thinking about belief systems, there's so many things out there. How can somebody who's starting a business know what the right thing is to believe in? There's so many people influencing that.
Yeah, more now than ever, right? Right. Yeah, well, look, it's part and parcel of that main topic, right? You sort of have to understand what you need at the time in which you need it. Like this, everyone's got access to all the information on the planet on their handset. There's some good things and some bad things to that, right? The bad things are that I think young people have access to too much information. Belief systems aren't aligned to the right outcomes. That'll influence the information they seek on social media, right? And that'll impact their life. Like, I don't think we still even realize the impact of the influence of social media and the information that's been delivered through those platforms. And I don't want to mention them, but one rhymes with big buck, is that, you know, it's not really delivering good quality information to young minds. Governments have a lot of work to do with that. We all know that, everyone talks about it. There's so much information and a lot of it's just bullshit. You know what I mean? For myself, for example, you know, and my advice to everyone, this is what I do. I really am really considered on the information that I absorb. So right now, I'm focused on 2 to 3 people because they're giving me the information I need right now at the time of my life and the time of life of my business, right? That's just 3 people. So I cut all the noise out. And I go to 3 people who have a proven history of success and who have built a business from the ground up into billion-dollar companies. If you're a young entrepreneur watching this show today or this video today, and you're at $3 million and you want to get to 10, you should be dialed in on founders who have taken a business from 3 million to 10. Doesn't that just make sense? You know, and the part B to that, if you're in a scenario where you're struggling with a particular element inside your business, how do I increase lead acquisition for my sales team? Well, you should be dialed in to videos about highly experienced individuals who have success, proven success, that's real, who have scaled a business from 3 to 10 million through lead acquisition.
Give me like a tip on how somebody can take their business from 3 million to 10 million. What noise do you have to cut out? Like, who should you listen to? Like, what should you think?
I've walked through that journey myself, right? So what I do, and I'll just give you these are real examples, right? Yeah. Of building a business on the basis of good quality intel or information. Yeah. And I'll just pivot to talking about, you know, young people having access to all the information on Instagram, TikTok, you know, even LinkedIn now. That platform's really starting to change. I'm starting to see a lot of social influence on that platform coming through. Facebook as well. Let's talk about sales, right? Because I think salespeople and sales agents selling product to customers. This is not through e-commerce. This is through human-to-human sales. Highly influenced by externals, right? So what I mean by that is, and I've experienced myself, and I probably was to a point as well. Probably not as bad as some, but so you know, you have a salesperson. Their job is to sell product. They move from employer to employer, and that might be, it could be knocking on doors. It could be a business development role, pitching to clients in boardrooms. It could be picking up the phone and calling leads that come through to your CRM, like all of those sorts of things, right? And the young sales agent, what they do is, especially if they're uneducated, is that they listen to sales people on social media and YouTube. But how generic is that statement? They listen to salespeople. So if I was to break that down into categories and to compartmentalize that, there's probably 4 or 5 processes to a sales engagement with a customer, right? If you could identify what your deficiencies are, you know, you would just go laser focused on that, would be my advice to anybody working in sales especially, is to say that, hey, okay, so I'm a salesperson, I do outbound call from a call center, and I need to improve my discovery skills. What would I do? I would go and find the best of the best of some mentor or some coach online that I can get access to information for free, so you don't have to pay for it. You don't need to spend $15,000 on the course. Right. That covers 27 subjects. Find one person talking deeply about one thing, discovery. Vet that person, so make sure they're the real deal. You know, go and do some research on them. That's what I do. You know, I'm listening to guys that I do deep research on to ensure that the people I'm listening to are the right people. And what they're saying, they've actually executed against themselves, made the mistakes, stood up again, and then became successful off the back of those errors, right? Yeah. So don't go listening to some 27-year-old kid telling you he's going to make you a billionaire when he's working out of his mum's garage and he's turning over at $200K a year. Like, that's the dumbest thing you could do. So you've got to vet the information or who it's coming from before you absorb it and learn from it, right? Because most of it's bullshit, I'll be honest with you. So back to the sales agent, say, discovery. Go and find 1 or 2 people only. Make sure that they're right for you, that you understand what they're saying, that you can absorb that information, it's coherent to you, and go deep on that. And not for a day, not for an hour. I'm talking for 30 days. 30 days is what I would normally do. So I'm listening to a particular individual now, young woman in America, built a $1 billion portfolio of small businesses, right? So she goes and acquires small businesses. She used to work in a hedge fund on Wall Street, so she's an ex-finance person, and has been trained under some of the best, right? And is friends with some of the other people that I've listened to before. So this is how I came across her, through association, right? And she'll build a $5 billion portfolio in the next 10 years. Now that's someone you can learn from. But there's one particular vertical that she talks about a lot, so I just go and seek that information from her. I don't need to listen to all of her subject matter or syllabus. I just need to learn this right now. And I want to hear her speak about that because I think she's pretty good at it, and she speaks in a way that I can understand it. So that's what I do, and I advise if you're a young entrepreneur to just to filter and go deep on the people that you find giving you the information, but vet the information and vet the person and make sure they're the real deal. That's what I think.
What do you think of social media's influence on young entrepreneurs?
It's had an enormous impact. I'm actually pretty positive on it. I think if you're a young business owner, you get access to a whole bunch of information that wasn't available to people who were born, say, in the 70s or 80s, right? It just wasn't. Like, you had to go to university to figure out what a balance sheet was and how to use it. Now you can just go and do a course online that'll probably be for free, if not super cheap. The adage was cash is king. But now information is emperor. Right, so these kids have access to all the information they need. A lot of it is good information, don't get me wrong. A lot of it, but most of it is not. There's 2 types of information. There's data-driven information, where people talk on the basis of research, and then there's all the bullshit. Where there's young kids or people talking about things they know nothing about and they haven't actually learnt it or executed against it themselves. So I think it's been good for the business community overall. But I just think you have to enhance your filtration skills to really benefit from it and for it not to negatively impact your results. That's what I think.
I gotta ask you though, as a business owner, how do you cut through the noise? How do you see what's bullshit and what's not?
For me, it's pretty easy. Filtration research, right? Like, I just think, man, if you're going to invest hours and hours on learning a particular thing from a particular person, who is that person?
Right.
And you can tell by their character and their nature and how they're presenting themselves online, man. You just know. No one goes, hey, Warren Buffett, gee, who's this guy? Right. I wonder if he knows what he's talking about. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't.
Right.
Why? Because he's got kudos and reputation. So maybe a good way for people to do it is to just go for those people who you know are the real deal. And there's plenty of them on the internet. I was watching something from Mark Cuban last night. He's a billionaire. Right. He's a celebrity. And he's a smart dude. So, and I spent 30 minutes just watching an interview with him. Yep. Took a couple of notes, put those in my phone and learnt something, right? But I'm not going to listen to Jeremy, who I don't know who he is, and he pops up in my feed and there's a Lamborghini behind him and he's wearing a pair of black skinny shorts and a white t-shirt. So you should be instinctual. And I think if you're young, you probably attract to that, right? If you're going to invest your time in learning from someone in particular, like even me, right? Go and do your research on me. Like, am I the real deal? Or am I just full of shit? You should do that. By the way, yeah, it's real. This office behind me is not fake. It's actually our office, so. But yeah, they should do that. That would be my advice.
Just curious, what do you think about people having choices these days? Like you said before that back in the old days, you had to go to Harvard or some other school to get your information.
Well, maybe not Harvard, but...
You go to classes, whatever, but these days...
A university you could afford.
Exactly. But these days you can just take a course online and you have all the information you need. Is it good to give people choices? Is it good to have an overflow of information? What do you think about distractions and things like that online?
Yeah, there is a lot of distraction there. I call it chasing unicorns, man. Everyone's chasing unicorns, right?
Yeah.
because we have a lack of focus. Young kids have a lack of focus.
Yeah.
They are all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, and look, it's not their fault. We probably created the problem, like parents probably created the problem. Like, you know, the boys in the Bay Area built all these platforms that became highly successful and propagated out globally around the planet, and we gave access to our children to use them. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So now they're just, you know, like micro content, 60-second reels, dude. Like seriously, 60 seconds? So, you know, even the methodology and the principle of that itself, you know, forces distraction. We have to balance that out. We haven't done that yet. And I think there's probably a cycle societally with that, but shit, like everyone is distracted.
So as a business owner, founder, how do you focus? How do you stay focused?
Good question. Well, I have systems and tools around me, right? So I've built a whole range of systems and tools, and I'm very focused on habit. So I'm pretty habitual. Like, and I've spoken about this many times. You know, it takes just over 3 months to form a habit. You know, then again, you have to really do the 3 months for it to stick long term. Pick good habits, write them down, and then force those habits on yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I'm only going to access 30 minutes a day or 60 minutes a day for social media activities.
That's a very good one.
And then kill it.
That's good.
You know, and if you can do that, like you should, right now, you should go and have a look at your phone and figure out on average how much time you're spending on your phone on social media. It'll tell you. Only 60 minutes a day, and it might only be 5 days a week. You know, I have to do it for business. I've got to, you know, connect to people, reply to DMs, all that sort of stuff. Cool, no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
And it might be on the weekends, I'm going to reduce it to 30 minutes a day. So that's more about personal social media time. And you leave it at that. Like, that's one thing you could do, right? I don't check email, and we were just speaking about this today. I don't check email till 10 a.m. You know, so the first 2 hours of the day, I do what is most important to me. You know, so I have 3 things I have to achieve every day. 3 things, always 3 things. Never 2, never 4, only 3. Because I've figured out that 3 things for me works really well. If it takes me 10 hours to do one of those 3 things, I know it's only going to take me 10 working days to complete it, right? Because in the 3 hours, I only allocate an hour to it, right? And then people get distracted during the course of the day and they have to run and do all these things and attend all these meetings and these virtuals. But if you hit it first thing in the day, you know that it gets done. Yeah. My afternoon is for hunting and my morning is for deep work. Because I'm just fresher in the morning, so my deep work is faster. I get through it quicker, I've got more clarity. Yeah. And I have a timer, by the way. I use my timer and set it for 30-minute increments or 60-minute increments, and I don't move until that task.
So we talked about learning, but how many hours do you put towards learning, and how do you fit that into your busy schedule?
You have to be conscious and think about how much time you're putting towards learning. So if you're doing 50 hours a week working, right? What if you did 60 hours a week and 10 hours a week was towards learning? That's how I categorize learning. That learning is part of growing my business, right? So when I say, oh, I've worked 100 hours, well, I've probably done about 15 hours worth of learning in that 100 hours. And that might be reading. It could be watching an interview, taking some notes. Right now, I'm probably averaging about 10 hours a week. And that's a compilation of reading actual physical books. Remember those things? We used to buy books from bookstores and read them. So and highlight with a highlighter, you know, and put a post-it note on the page that you're at and fold the corner, all that stuff. I sort of like that. I think there's information that you absorb better when you read it, but I like to write notes down in books. So if it's a technical book, business book, I read it. And if it's not, I just listen to it on Audible, right? But I'm doing about 10 hours a week, and that includes in the car. So I'm listening to audiobooks in the car. I'm listening to specific interviews with people. And I, like I said before, I'm only going deep with 2 or 3 people right now. And I do not listen to anybody else. Like, all these people pop up in my feed. And I only listen to 3 people right now. And I'll do that till the end of December. So I'm listening to a guy about artificial intelligence and what that looks like in the future. So I can help myself navigate those decisions. And that's it. So 10 hours a week, 3 people only. I read books, I listen to Audible, and I listen to interviews mostly. I don't like to listen to just random stuff. Yeah.
What do you think of the belief that you are the sum of 5 people you hang out with the most?
That statement resonated with me, 15 years ago when I first heard it. Yeah. And I think even before then, I knew that statement was real. And I think if you're feeling it, you should do something about it. I think if people feel that statement and they go, wow, you know what? I just don't feel like I'm hanging out with the right people right now. They're not good for me. You want to cut those people and do it super fast. You are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And if you're hanging out with the wrong people, it will not help you. It won't help them either. They'll start to be disillusioned by you. And what normally happens is, that happened to me and that happens to most people who start to generate good, healthy economics and other people are not, is that they start to point the finger at you. They start to pull you down a little bit. It's that tall poppy syndrome attitude that sort of doesn't help people trying to be successful when they're hanging out with people who are not, So my advice is if you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And again, that added is you should be the dumbest person in the room. And I translate that to just social context in general, right? Yeah. If I'm standing around a bunch of people and I feel like I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm like, man, I've got to get out of here. You know what I mean? Because it just doesn't help me. That said, if you're coaching and trying to help other people, that's okay. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is, if you feel it, do something about it. And I guarantee you, people watching this video, a lot of them feel it and haven't done anything about it because they don't know how to navigate it. So let me talk just a little bit about that. Yeah. If they're close friends of yours and you went to school together, move. I think people underappreciate that activity or that action. Yeah. I think moving is such a critical thing to do when you're young. Because you want to burn your boats, right? And when you do that, great things happen. So I would move. That's what I did. I left it too late. I did it when I was 24, I think, or 23. I wish I'd done when I was 20 or 19. So I left it a little bit too long. But still, 24 is okay. Yeah. It gives you enough time to surround yourself with good quality people and move into a new environment. That said, I didn't do that. People will resonate with this. I started hanging out with the same people I was hanging out with from the city that I left. Because that's all I knew, right? So then I knew that I had to get back into education and educate myself on how I do that and get out of those groups. I was a musician, creative at the time, so it's very difficult. I wasn't a business guy. I spent half of my life as a creative, and the second half of my life as a business guy, right? Which I think is a lot easier to do because you sort of are attuned to it, right? Growth and learning, and you're sort of into it. So it makes it a little bit easier. But if you're watching this video and looking for a way to get out, you don't have to hurt everyone's feelings and say, hey, I don't want to be friends anymore. Yeah. You just say, hey, I'm moving. Yeah. I'm moving to another city. When are you doing that? Next week. See ya. and you can always go back and see everyone, right? Yeah. And the other way to do it is just to do it slowly. I'm more of a just cut straight away guy. Most people don't like that, but so I've sort of struggled with that myself. I think, having the right people around you, and some of the people around me, even though they weren't right for my economics or my growth, personal growth, they're good people. Like, I'm not saying that they're not. They're awesome, but they just can't help me. So sometimes you have to move on from that.